So, Stanley, is it time to forgive Matt Hancock?
I would say yes, absolutely.
What's the best moment of the series so far for you?
Best moment for me of the series was when Hancock gets the 11th star in the Tentacles of Terror, and he gets it in time.
And so who is your pick to win, Stanley?
I believe that Matt Hancock, on the evidence of this show so far, deserves to win because he has outclassed all the others, even though the others haven't necessarily had the same opportunities to perform. 100% sure that Matt Hancock deserves to win on performance alone.
Hello, welcome back to Jungle Confidential, the Mail's podcast and your place to hear all of the I'm A Celeb gossip. Today, I've got Stanley Johnson with me. Morning, Stanley.
Good morning, lovely to be here.
Thanks so much for coming. Last night, it tries not to be the Matt Hancock show, but it just is, isn't it? Just everything is about Matt Hancock.
Well, no, last night I'd say was not totally about Matt Hancock because we saw some movements. We saw three of the quote unquote celebrities, and off they went. They did something called, well, it was Angel of the North, wasn't it? But maybe it was Angel of the South. This great, amazing construction which they'd had in the jungle. And they had to, I think there was Chris, and there was Bubba, and there was George. And the three of them were meant to be, as always, pushing stars from one to another. They came back fairly shamefaced, I've got to say, because I think their sum total was 3. Well, we've been here for more than a week now, and we've been getting used to these high scores. I mean, I haven't made a complete total, but we've had 11 on one occasion from Hancock. I think we had 11 on 2 occasions from Hancock, and then there was a 7, which was still pretty good, and so the camp has been fairly well fed, and I suspect that tonight, if they're not going to be quite so happy because they're going to see that 3 stars doesn't really feed 11 people.
They keep saying, don't they, that the food issue is really, really does divide the camp. And as you say, so far they've been quite well fed, haven't they? Now, obviously, they got 3 stars. We saw them get 3 stars last night. Tonight, Chris Moyles is doing a task. Now, I think Chris Moyles showed last night he's a bit of a wimp, isn't he? So I'm wondering how many stars he's going to bring back tonight. I fear not many. And do you feel like the more hungry the camp is, perhaps, as you say, the dynamic changes and perhaps, it might not be so friendly anymore?
It's funny, if I go back to my time there, and I think I'm going back to 2017, I didn't actually mind not having much to eat. In fact, I kind of welcomed it. I didn't, but that I think is because I went in a bit overweight. But I think that we are going to see a change in the as equilibrium of the camp now, when they have to survive the next few days on much diminished rations.
Now, it's a good job I've got you with me today, because what Matt Hancock did do last night was dip his toe into the political world, didn't he? And he revealed that he feels that Liz Truss's political career is over. He also mentioned Boris. Is that appropriate that he's doing that he's sort of making these confessions in the jungle?
I have a feeling I missed out on that one. I think maybe my mental visor had fallen just for a moment. I don't actually recall. Did he do that in the confession?
Yeah, he said it. Yeah, well, it wasn't a confession. They were sitting talking about politics, and they were quizzing Matt about, politics, life in Westminster. And he said when Boris was on his way back from holiday, he messaged him and said, look, I think you're a great guy, but, please do support Rishi.
Give myself for missing out on this, because in fact last night while that show was being broadcast, I had to go up to, would you believe it, a little pub called The Cock in Thurlow. If I may talk for a moment about a rival show, it was Piers Morgan decamped totally with his team, took over this pub and brought up me and Christine Hamilton and Widdicombe. And we all, so what I'm getting at is I didn't actually get back to London until well after midnight. last night, so I missed out on seeing the show. Obviously, I caught up with it this morning,
Yes.
but catching up with it this morning while doing various other things possibly meant that I missed this crucial piece of the dialogue, which you said happened with Matt. Or no doubt he got lots of people advising him, and but it was interesting. It was interesting. It's very interesting to me to see that the dynamic, which has been very pro getting the food, and a little bit hesitant about, well, the food's actually coming from this, as it were, somewhat tainted source. And I've noticed that as the desire for food has become greater, the desire to think of Matt as a tainted source is kind of slightly diminished. And in the end, basically, those people in the camp, all of them, decided kind of collectively they didn't want to bite the hand that fed them.
Well, he's certainly getting stuck in, isn't he? I mean, he got stuck into his tasks and he did very well. Last night we saw him dancing, singing the Dancing Queen ABBA hit, and he even did the catwalk. I mean, he's certainly sort of trying to, I mean, he went in there trying to, you know, what he says is to portray himself, and so we all see the real Matt Hancock. I mean, he is, isn't he?
Yeah, look, let me tell you where I'm coming from on this. I did say this last night rather firmly. I've got to tell you, I was in a conclusive minority in that pub, in that pub bar. Piers Morgan led the way with the sort of typical Pierce anti-Hancock tirade, and I would say he was much supported by Christine Hamilton and Wintercombe. But I came from it a slightly different way, because I've known Hancock for quite a long time, and I've been amazingly impressed by his ability to concentrate, and in this case, his ability to concentrate on things which actually were good for his constituencies. So I was kind of making the point there last night that you can be a good constituency MP and do things which are important for your constituents without necessarily being on the spot all the time. Hancock is in a sense a brilliant man, and he is being introduced is perhaps not the right word, but to say, oh, he's not there, therefore he's not working for his constituencies, is a mistake. Because just take the dyslexia issue, and if I may just have 1 minute on this. Okay, people have been making this rather facile comment. Well, why isn't he talking about dyslexia in the jungle? Well, I can tell you, I went into the jungle, quote unquote, in 2017. Of course, I went in full of the things I normally do, which is campaign on environmental issues, the Biodiversity Convention, climate change, nature protection, all that sort of thing. And believe me, I did talk about it. I talked about it to my companions, and I hope they were interested. But that didn't necessarily mean it came out in the show as shown.
Last night, when you were in Matt's constituency, how did your views go down with them? You know, because obviously, you know, like you said, you were in the minority. I mean, were they angry with you? What were their thoughts?
Piers, went out of his way to whip them up. No question about that. He doesn't mince his words. I would not have thought that if he'd gone for a show of hands, I don't think who votes for Stanley, who votes for the rest of the panel, I would not have won that vote. I'm perfectly sure of that. That said, I would like to believe that out there in the wide world, there are some people who say, insofar as Matt Hancock had a strategy, and no reason why he should, we don't all have strategies in our life, but insofar as he had a strategy, the idea that he can, as it were, profit from his status, from his visibility, and I would say, by the way, from his sheer technical brilliance in doing those trials. I mean, had no idea that guy was going to be so good. I said to myself, why isn't he in the SAS? I don't know whether you watched something called The Tentacles of Fear, where he got 11 stars, one after another. Well, the point is, he has used all those abilities to deliver, I think, a platform. And the test now will be, will that platform deliver also for his constituency? I have a sense that he's not actually letting the side down.
Matt's the camp leader, which means he gets to sleep on a proper bed.
And elected camp leader, by the way.
Indeed. No, indeed. And by the public, elected by the public too.
By the public.
Which
I was elected by 10 million votes. I tell you, they sent it me when I was elected Prime Minister of Number 10 Downing Creek.
Oh, yes.
and Toff was elected my vice.
Good old Toff. We love Toff here. Now, despite this, they all seem to kind of, he's got a special chair that he sits on, a comfy chair. They all like him. There's a really friendly camp going on here. your camp, your experience in the I'm a Celebrity jungle wasn't quite so friendly, was it? There were a lot more arguments in your year, weren't there?
Well, I tell you, we had a running narrative, which was all to do with who ate the strawberries. It was called Strawberry
Well,
Gate.
in Amir Khan, yes, Amir Khan and his strawberries.
Yes, and in the end, it was Amir who ate the strawberries, and Ian Lee took the flak. Ian Lee took the flak in the camp, and I can remember Becky Vardy looking across that campfire, looking daggers at Ian. Well, it turned out when all was revealed right at the end, no, it had been Amir who had scoffed them, and he had let Amir. He was Amir who had scoffed them, and he'd let Ian Lee carry the can on this. Only goes to show how a plate of strawberries, which you might say is not the most nourishing thing, although it did have some cream on top of it, was still something to fight over.
Well, also, it's the point, wasn't it? I mean, I was going to bring Rebekah Vardy up with you because, of course, you were in the jungle with her. And, I think I would have been quite scared being in the jungle with her, especially as you just said, when she shot Ian Lee, poor Ian Lee, daggers. I mean, what was she really like when you were with her?
I was very fond of Rebekah Vardy. I mean, I will absolutely stand up for that lady. I really will. And she was talking to me about her childhood, and again, it kind of, I say to myself, and it wasn't such a happy childhood. I don't need to rehearse it here. And I say to myself, look, these are people who've done brilliantly in their lives. They've come such a long way. They've had so much to deal with, and I just couldn't. I don't think there was any particularly anti-Becky Vardy feeling in the camp. I noticed some things have happened since, which is hard to miss. But I found myself tremendously privileged.
I mean, they're quite good at having a good mix of people on there, aren't they? And your year does sound. I mean, that I guess for Matt, will that be quite good for him, won't it? Because he, when, as you say, when will he have been around people, a Coronation Street actress or a Hollyoaks actor, or a member of the royal family in Mike Tyndall? There is a real mix of people, and it must be quite nourishing for you to be around these people.
Well, I guess as a former Secretary of Health, Secretary of State for Health, he got to meet quite a lot of people, because that's what you do when you're a senior governmental figure. Whether you get to know them on a kind of one-to-one basis is another matter. You certainly in the quote-unquote jungle do get to know people on a one-to-one basis, and I have a feeling he has opened up on quite a few points. Some of them we heard last week. This whole question of forgiveness. I mean, I'm just speaking personally now. I would have said that for the episode in which he was filmed having grasping the young lady, well, I'd say that he has in a sense paid a price for that. I mean, he was sacked. He stood down. So that was that. And how many times can you charge a man for an offence which he's already been fined for? I see him as a man who has in fact shown a huge amount of talent. Just going back last night, if I might, to last night, there are people out there in the audience, I think, because Piers walked around with the microphone saying, "What do you think about this disgusting man, Matt Hancock? Don't you think he's anyway?" So Piers gets the reply he's looking for, and of course, one of the ideas is that actually every single person who died. And I'm not saying that's not important. Of course, it was tremendously important. But nevertheless, to attribute each and every one of them to Matt Hancock personally, I think is taking it too far. And there was a kind of movement last night in that direction.
And you can just imagine Piers sort of very much pushing them in that direction, because that's a narrative he wanted to put on. I mean, it does feel like it's, really okay to hate Matt Hancock and say what you like about Matt Hancock and, treat him however you wish to. Is that the impression you're getting, Katie? I mean, I'm not so very much up to speed. Yeah, I mean, that's the impression I'm getting now. In the camp, they all seem to quite like him, don't they? I mean, they all seem to have warmed to him, with the exception of Boy George, who I think has a real problem with him.
I would say that Sue Is her name Sue Cleaver?
Sue Cleaver, yes, from Coronation
Yes,
Street.
I would say the verdict, the jury is still out as far as Sue Cleaver is concerned. I mean, there's a degree of skepticism there. I mean, that's to say, it's not going to stop him from eating the spoil, eating the kangaroo hide, and so on and so forth. It'll be interesting to see whether now that the food winning aspect has shifted, whether Hancock still bathes in this glow of acceptance. Do you see what I mean? It'll be interesting to see in the next few days whether the camp may say, well, actually, he was a bit of a, let's remember all the bad things. Let's forget the way he fed us for a week.
And also, at the moment, he's a camp leader. I mean, being voted camp leader has been great for him, hasn't it? I mean, he actually gets to sleep in that RV. He gets to, have a nice time. And you wonder when that's going to change, don't you? I mean, we know what the jungle's like. It's brutal. And like you say, it just takes one thing, doesn't it, to change the dynamic?
Yes, I wouldn't say, from my experience, I wouldn't say it was brutal at all. It was a wholly invigorating experience. I was sad when my Lilo popped, because that was my special luxury item, and it was rather wonderful because I meant I could find some place where I thought the cameras weren't watching, and I'd have a quiet snooze, you see. And then one day I walked past the campfire and stupidly allowed the flame to pop the Lilo. We managed to get a puncture mending outfit, and so I did manage to pump it up every day, but it wasn't quite the same.
Do you know Matt Hancock well? Is he somebody you know?
No, I wouldn't say I do, but obviously I've met him over the years. I mean, I first met him I think when he was in the process of losing, would you believe this, 14 kilograms? 14 kilos.
Wow.
Now, and why was he doing that? Because, and this is the kind of man he is, he said, I want to run and win, ride a horse in it's quite a famous race. It's called the Newport something plate. There's the Newmarket something plate. It's been going for years and years. It's quite a longish race, actually. I think it maybe almost certainly over 2 miles, might even be 4. And would you believe it? So he got his weight down to jockey weight. He got a horse, and he won it. Well, You say to yourself, a man who and what did he win it for? He won it so that he could give the funds to the Disabled Jockeys Association. Now, if that isn't working for your constituency, if you're a Newmarket MP, I don't know what is.
I mean, so he lost 14 kilos, and I mean, I'm not expecting you to comment on this, but he looks quite buff, doesn't he? And I mean, the youngsters on TikTok or on other social media are actually starting to quite fancy him. I think that's probably one of the unexpected things here.
That's news to me. I've never discovered.
Well, last night as well, they were saying he should go on Love Island next year, another ITV reality show.
Well, this is interesting. That is interesting. Well, of course, I mean, if you're looking at the reality TV as a way of life, which I definitely don't. I definitely don't. I suppose there is a progression, isn't there? There's Celebrity Get Me Out of Here. There's Love Island. There's the thing Ed Balls did, which was called Strictly Come Dancing. Oh, God.
Imagine he could do that next, couldn't he?
Well, I think you've just raised a point. I think you've got to be careful, actually, because it's no good, as it were, making a career out of reality TV and then losing sight of what your main objectives are. Do you see what I mean? And I think that it would be very important for Matt, if he does come back into Parliament, to continue to press the things he is pressing for. And I think we've already talked about the dyslexia one. If he stays out of Parliament, which is another possibility. I mean, Piers last night did a kind of, hands up for those who think he should be deselected. Come on, get your hands up.
How many people put their hands up?
I think quite a lot.
Oh, really? Oh, really? Interesting. Oh, wow.
Quite a lot, dear.
So, because obviously there's much talk of a by-election, but I thought that it was quite a safe seat, and he was quite liked in the area, but clearly not.
I'm not. Look, I'm only talking about a gathering,
a smaller group of people.
Gathering at a pub. I would very much hope that there are people out there in his constituency like me who say this man has worked hard.
He does seem like a man who's a bit of a doer, isn't he? I mean, he does a lot, as we've just been discussing. It does all seem a little bit unfair, doesn't it, that he's getting so much criticism, for a couple of things. I mean, it does seem, but...
I'm very glad. I hope someone quotes you. Katie, I hope you'll get quoted. Katie says it's a bit unfair that Hancock's getting so much criticism. I hope you put that out as a
actually, in the Daily Mail today, I've written a piece about how much I fancy him.
Oh,
so
golly!
I'm very much behind Matt Hancock. I met him last year. Well, you should read it. I met him last year.
I'm going to rush off and buy it.
I'm a big fan, but I'm really interested in how he is turning it round. And as I mentioned earlier, the young people. I mean, they're the harshest critics sometimes, aren't they? The sort of millennial social media generation. I think it's been a triumph, actually. I mean, I was the first person to say, what the hell is he doing? This is a nightmare. But actually now I think he could make the final. I mean, my money's on him and Boy George in the final.
Well, this is very, very interesting. You've revealed a whole new aspect. Because I sit at the breakfast table and my wife says, for Christ's sake, why are you going? She doesn't swear. But, she can't believe that I'm out there defending Matt Hancock. I say a man who has had to deal with the problems of dyslexia. And by the way, it was what you might call late detected dyslexia.
Yes, it was,
you see what I mean? So you go through a lot of your life, people wondering, why is he so bloody incompetent, this or that or the other? Well, okay, I happily have never had that sort of problem. But I say to myself, in this world, I give credit for where he's come from, as well. I mean, he hasn't had a kind of silver spoon existence. He has really earned his spurs in so many ways.
Stanley, thank you so much. I really appreciate you joining us. And yeah, you and I feel very similar about Matt Hancock, I think. Totally
thrilled to know that out there in the roaring vitriolic media, there's perhaps more friendly voices than I thought there were.
Thank
well
you.
Done, Katie.
Thank you, Stanley. Lovely to chat.
Pleasure. I'm going to rush off and buy the mail.